Thanks everyone for joining. So I think for the next 3 4 minutes, what I'll do is provide a 30,000 foot view of what Google is seeing. Right. I think it's a good introduction, and I think our friends here at Promevo can provide a more pointed perspective based on the work that they've done with their customers. And the things that they'll touch on, aren't groundbreaking. I think they make sense intuitively. I think all of us in the post-code age, this polemic around if hybrid work's going to stay or workers are going to be forced back to the office or they hold back and be able to work at home. No matter which way the pendulum swings to it, there is still this undeniable, uh, dare I say, inexorable realization that more often than not, workers are going to be in transit. They're going to be remote. They're going to be meeting customers in the field. And so, this world of completely being in the office, I don't think it's too much of an extrapolation to say that version of the world will not come back anytime soon. And to take that thesis even further, the the topology of what that type of worker looks like is forever changed, right? There's this discussion around the rise of the cloud worker, and that a cloud worker would be defined as someone that spends the majority of their time in the browser accessing 3 to 5 applications to do the majority of their work. So next, the that centralization of a lot of their work, a lot of their day to day in the browser presents opportunities for productivity, right? Since most of us, especially the next generation of workers coming into the workplace, that's what they grew up with. It'll increase productivity, right? It's intuitive. But on the flip side, it will also increase the sheer number of threats and the consequences of those threats, right? So here's some statistics, to illustrate that point further. The main takeaway from these data points really is the browser is going to continue to be a leading vector for compromise, and the average cost of a breach, as history has shown, will continue to increase in cost. So you have to balance the double-edged sword of the browser as that centralized platform for cloud workers. Right, on one hand, it brings a lot of productivity, but on the flip side, it it opens up the attack surface by which external attackers can infiltrate and wreak havoc. Just to illustrate, to continue on that thought and illustrate types of security concerns that stem from the browser as that vector, right? One of the first ones is the risk of browser extensions, especially if they have been vetted by your internal IT teams. It's the equivalent is when developers are using open source frameworks and libraries that haven't been vetted, right? You're opening yourself up to risk. The lack of control over browsers, right? I think not. This is again a very Google-esque thought, but not centralizing on a single browser that puts security at the center of that treats, security as a first-class citizen. That opens yourself up to risk. I think phishing and malware, I think that makes sense intuitively. If you have a browser that isn't secure, that's opening yourself up to vulnerabilities because you're not managing extensions intelligently. You're opening yourself up to phishing and malware. I think from an administrator perspective as well, if you don't see what's actually happening in the browser and the way your employees and remote workers are actually accessing content, data, and applications, you have no pathway to discover where you're under threat, where you're compromised, and you have no pathway to then recover, right? In security, seeing is half the battle. And if you don't have that visibility, then you can't react. I think data exfiltration is, from talking to customers, is one of really the main concerns we hear a lot. Data exfiltration stemming from the just human error, right? Receiving emails from addresses and people that you haven't communicated with before that encourage you to look at PDFs or web links that are malicious and not scanning for those. That leads to data exfiltration. Those are human errors that could be mitigated, and having some sort of embedded security within the browser could potentially alleviate that, right? But that is a common web security concern. And then last but not least, unmanaged devices, right? We all lived through that phase of BYOD, mobile device management, being one of the hot trends for a while, and to this day, it still continues to be top of mind, and dare I say continue to be, because of this paradigm we discussed, right? Where we don't know if people are going to continue to work remote or in the office, but what we do know is it's very tough to rip away Gen Z and millennials such as myself away from their iPhones and their TikToks. And so I think the cacophony of having to deal with a managed and unmanaged devices is going to continue to rear its ugly head. So I think in a nutshell, these are 6 high level points of security concerns that we've seen at Google. So what is the counterpoint to that, right? How do you alleviate those? And one of the thesis that we have in this space is you should engender a secure enterprise browsing approach, right? And so here at Google, we define it as having key characteristics, right? Security is treated as a first-class citizen. It's built as part of the browser. It's not something that's attached to it. It's not plugged into it. It's built into it. Real-time protection. So we mentioned visibility is the first part of the battle. So having visibility into your browser and potential web-based threats, right? And having a dashboard for administrators to be able to see what's happening. That's the first part of the battle. But then being able to detect things in real time, both from internal and external threats, that's the other part of the battle. So having those features embedded as part of the browser from our perspective, that's when you're looking at secure enterprise browsing patterns, those should be embedded. And then last but not least, from an administrator perspective, we believe the administrator should have the flexibility to write, manage, and iterate upon security policies that dictate the way users can and cannot interact with data applications and content deemed appropriate by their employer. So, ultimately, the goal here is to balance users increasing their productivity, right? Minimizing the latency between them and the work that they want to do, but at the same time, ensuring that they're doing it securely. So in a marketecture-esque tagline, the secure enterprising, I'll say it again, tagline is really, how do you protect your corporate data while users work securely on the web from anywhere and with any device, right? If you were to have a song or one sentence summary of Google's secure enterprise browsing story, it couldn't be better said than that one sentence, right? And as the little pictures here show, we're mitigating data exfiltration, we're protecting users in real time, and we're engendering this zero trust, trust nothing, right? Validate trust continuously approach to the way users interact with their content applications through the browser. So I think this is a great transition to David. It'll actually show you what that actually could look like versus me giving you this, hey, this setting the stage of this is where high level Google sees this space. So David, I feel like it's a great transition to you, my friend, to take over.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Alex. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. What we're going to do is take a look at an actual configuration of BeyondCorp that's set up to protect data exfiltration from specifically the Chrome browser and the integration with data loss prevention that is innate to Workspace editions. And so with this, I think this is all going to come together pretty nice at the end. So give me a little leeway here. But the first thing that you might do, first thing you would want to do is set up some sort of context to say, okay, somebody either needs to meet this condition or do not meet this condition. And then we're going to take action on access based on the level that we've set here. These levels can be created to do certain things, such as what you're seeing on the screen. There's an example there for allowing just temporary access. If you want to allow just access during certain work days or only just a certain period of time and then remove the access, that can be done. You can set that once and then not have to set it back up again. You can set different access levels based on whether a device is admin approved, the status of the device. This could be it's encrypted, it's not encrypted. Sometimes you want to actually go to a stricter security stance if the device does not meet one of these standards, for example. You also have things like locale that you can create. Let's go into creating an access level first, just as an example. And we're just going to use locale since that's a pretty simple one. But I will show you each one of the options that you have, keeping in mind that these can be applied with BeyondCorp to, I'll be showing you Chrome data loss prevention today, but it also is going to be able to protect things like hybrid cloud, Google Cloud Platform, even the APIs for Workspace, APIs in Google Cloud Platform, access to it. Anything that is a SaaS application that you have, on-prem, web-based, all of those also can have the access gated by these context conditions. So let's just say that our location needs to be a certain area in order for access to be allowed to an application. Just going to choose the United States here. So what this will do is anybody that is coming from an IP address that's geographically located outside of the United States, any place that we apply this to, they will not have the ability to actually access the application. So upon sign in, it is going to evaluate whether or not they've met this context condition. So GeoIP is going to be one that you would use. I'm going to show you some other ones now. Device status. So device status is also going to be a great way to protect your assets. So you can say that we need to make sure if they're going to access something on our domain, on something in our ecosystem, that this device needs to be admin approved and it needs to be encrypted. And we also want to do it's company owned. So what we've done here is we've created an access level where anything that does not meet all of these three criteria will not have access to items. So let's just take a very simple example. I can apply this to the Google Cloud Platform, and upon sign in, it is going to check the device status for all these three things and determine whether or not the device has access or is allowed to go into it. If it does not meet all three of these conditions, it is going to not allow them in. Another item that you can do is by device OS, whether it is or is not something. And then IP range. So if you are still, for example, in physical locations with a static external IP, you can add those so that if everyone is still working from the office, that, for example, they cannot access from outside of the office network. So these are going to be some of the conditions that you can do and apply with context-aware access. Once these are created, you've determined what level of access you are concerned about and what context about either the device or GeoIP, then we can apply that. So let's go in and we're actually going to combine one of the context-aware access rules in BeyondCorp with a data loss prevention rule, specifically in the Chrome browser. So I'm going to show you here in data loss prevention. You may be familiar with this in Workspace editions. Let's go in and take a look at this rule here. So with the rules, if you haven't seen these before, you can choose a scope. These are going to be basically just everybody, which is going to be probably the most common one that you would do, but you can also add inclusion, exclusion groups, or just include or exclude certain organizations. So for this example, we're going to take a look at Chrome. We're going to take a look at 4 different items. We're just going to check all these. We've got file uploaded, file downloaded, content pasted, content printed. So these are the things that I'm concerned about protecting the data. Next, we're going to set a condition in here. This is going to be what we actually want to look for. Okay, what are we concerned about that might exfiltrate from the company? So you have different options here. right now I've pre-selected a predefined content detector type of credit card number, but just showing you some of the other options that you can do. You can do a contains text string, a contains word. So if you have things like IP, items that should not be discussed or sent outside the domain specific to your company or your clients, you can do regular expressions that you can create from scratch or use something from the internet, a word list. And then up here where it says recommended, you will have a very large list of global and regional items that are going to be created by, these lists are created and maintained by Google, and they will allow you to quickly select items that are generally going to be of interest for data exfiltration. So we have things like your bank, your IBAN, your SWIFT, you have your credit card number, there's going to be social security number, there's going to be regional specific things like driver's licenses for that specific region, and so forth. There are quite a bit of these policies that Google has and maintains, and they're always adding more, credentials being one as well. So we're going to set this, and then we're interested in making sure that credit card information does not exfiltrate from the company. Now what we can do is combine it with the access level one that we've created. And so if this, the users have to meet this context for the rule to actually apply. So in this scenario, let's say that a user is on a device that is not company owned. So we're going to switch to a more secure posture. We're going to say, hey, you're not on a company owned device. We don't want you copy pasting anything from inside the domain to outside of it, or downloading or uploading anything if you are not on an actual approved device. Let's go to the next screen. We have actions that we can take. So actions for Chrome are going to be block, which is, you will see we're going to maintain the block posture, and you'll see an example of that, which is going to be pretty neat. You also have allow with warning. So this will tell them, hey, you are doing something that potentially contains sensitive information as defined out by your administrators. Are you sure that you want to do this? And ultimately, they can go ahead and select yes, though. Audit only is just what it sounds like. And this is a great way to roll this out in a manner that's not going to be intrusive, where you can first evaluate the impact of rolling these out, seeing how many actual incidences of what you're looking for actually get triggered by this. We're going to stay with block, however. And for alerting, you can optionally choose to send this to the Google Alert Center. The Alert Center is going to include some additional information about the actual alert. It's going to give you the ability also to do an investigation on the alert, assign it to somebody. We'll show you more of that as well later. And then, of course, you can just send this to emails, the notification to emails that you choose. So this can be email recipients, all super admins. It could be to a group, multiple groups, and so forth. So I already have the rules set up. So I'm actually just going to cancel out of this. And we are going to go into an example. So here I have in my Google Drive, I have a document with a credit card number and a credit card like number. So this is something that you can grab from the internet. That's an example test credit card number. It matches a format that potentially could be a credit card number of the various types that you would expect, your MasterCard, Visa, Discover, Amex. And so if it matches that format, it is looking for this in some sort of, in one of your documents, for example, in Chrome, or if it's in your clipboard, copy pasting. But let's just say I want to go download this, and we have blocked this. So we are going to attempt to download it. Down here in the lower left, you might not be able to see that. It says that it is checking that with my organization policies and determining whether or not it is okay with it. However, it is reporting back that organization policy is actually not met. When I go to the review, it's going to show me that, hey, this potentially has sensitive or dangerous data. This is a customizable message that you can put. I'm just put up sort of a boilerplate there for this, but you can customize what it actually says here, which is nice. So that was not downloaded to the computer. Let's say I'm going to try to print it because that was another item. So I'm going to do my print dialog here. And okay, I hit Control P on my keyboard, which you obviously couldn't see, but that normally brings up the print dialog, right? So this triggered that rule. Let's say, okay, it's got the credit card number. They're trying to print. We're protecting against the printing of credit card number, so block it. So that is blocked as well. Now let's go take a little deeper look into this as if you were administrator. Okay, so you get so items of this nature occur. Now what? Well, we have sent it to the alert center. So it will look something like this for this specific example, where you can get some more information about it. So let's just delve into this one. So this was triggered on a printed page, for example, which is the one I just tried to do. Credit card number is the file name. You have the detector name, which we did select the predefined content match for credit card number. And the actions that actually happened. So there was an alert, which means the alert center, it got sent to the alert center that we're looking at currently. And then the blocking of the page printing. Over here on the left, you can assign an investigator and a status to this. So if somebody is investigating this, they can mark this as in progress. And then similar to sort of working, a support case, you can add history down here and then update the status of this. You also have related alerts that are automatically listed by Google down here. These are going to be alerts that are similar in nature to the one that you're looking at. Now let's pivot to another part of the investigation. We're just going to go to the Chrome log events, and we're going to give us all the log events that contained sensitive information as part of that. So we can go into here and we can say, okay, sensitive data transfer is the event that happens in a Chrome log event. So we're going to go down to our log and we're going to hit event is, and then we are going to do sensitive data transfer. Search on that. This is going to bring us back items that have occurred that match this for BeyondCorp. And then you also, of course, will get more information about this. You're going to have a flyout. It's going to be all the information basically from the alert center, but in one nice place where you can export all of these. You also can take action too. If you wanted to, for example, from here, suspend the user that did this. If you wanted to force a password reset, if you suspect the account's been compromised, you can also automate those actions if you like. This can be exported to a Google Sheet or a CSV file, and then you can view that in a more readable format and then do some analytics on it if you like. Another item to show you related to the Chrome blocking with DLP. It's going to be inside the Security Center in the dashboard. We are going to get some meta level information about the items that have occurred with the sensitive data transfer. So there's also going to be things like unsafe site visits. So as Alex said, the Chrome browser just innately is going to have built-in protections, and it's already doing things that you're going to expect from a modern browser. It's sandboxing tabs. It's stopping you from clicking on or visiting malicious links. You also have things like password reuse and malware transfer, the sensitive data transfer, which is what we just saw. High risk domains, these are going to be the ones that have the most frequent occurrence of it. Since I downloaded from google.com or the Google user content from Drive, it's determining that that's the high risk domain, since that has the most instances on this test domain. Data protection summary with the DLP. So you will get a visualization here as well as a pivotable report where you can see all of the categories for this. So, okay, there were no file uploads. We tried to do some file downloads and some page printing and web content upload. We tried to do some of that here. pretty recently. So you can also pivot to reporting in here and get some metrics on this, export this. And then if you're concerned about just a subsection of this, you can also pivot back to the item that we were using earlier, which was the investigation tool. With just that magnifying glass, it will pre-populate this and then bring up the rest of the items here that matched that search. So this is going to be sort of the whole picture with, we're looking at context, we're preventing data loss, we're preventing data exfiltration rather, from the Chrome browser to outside the Chrome browser, you know, whether that's downloading on the local machine or copy pasting into another section of the machine. So I'm going to go do some slides now. And I think now that we've kind of gone through some examples of this, I think this will make it a lot more clear and hopefully tie it together all for everybody. So let me choose my other screen here. And we will go back to this. Okay. So now, based on what we've just seen, I think this hopefully will make a lot more sense and how you can utilize this, as well as the utility of something like this and the necessity in an organization. So the secure browsing, one thing to mention on this is that it's an agentless. So this is not something where you're going to have to go and force install something on each machine where it needs to go and run as a service in the background. This is utilizing the connections between Chrome browser and potentially third-party threat security vendors, but ultimately it does not require an agent. You are utilizing the Chrome browser, which is going to give you, as I mentioned, access control, which is to say, for example, you cannot access an application if you do not meet the context that the device is admin approved or company owned. Data protection, which we just saw in the Chrome section for the credit card. You have your threat prevention, acceptable use. You have Google Safe Search. You have your threat prevention. Again, Chrome browser, secure by design, and the safe browsing is built in. So this is going to give you a little bit more information. We just covered in the demo just a little bit of it. So that was just kind of the tip of the iceberg. You can do a lot more with this in a lot of different places. It's not just Chrome that you can prevent data exfiltration from and access controls to. So you can, for example, do internal web apps that are hosted on Google Cloud. You can do internal web apps hosted on other clouds, so any cloud. You can also do SaaS applications, internal web apps that are hosted on premises. As I mentioned before, the Google Cloud platform itself, like the GUI access, the front end access, and then also API access through this as well. So anything that you can basically think of is going to be able to be protected by these context rules. Also showcased in the demo, you have real-time enforcement of the policies and data loss prevention. They're going to be integrated into the browser with BeyondCorp. So with Chrome, as I mentioned, you're going to get not just these items, but is going to have your safe browsing, your sandbox tabs. The data loss prevention also is going to contain optical character recognition elements, which is a sort of a subsection of AI, where you can put an image or determine, Google will determine whether an image contains text that is containing sensitive data. So for example, in the credit card data loss prevention rule, if I took a picture of a credit card rather than just typed out the number like I did, then that also could be protected by data loss prevention. It's going to extract the text from the image. It's going to determine that there's a credit card number in it. And then it is going to block it, the download, the exact same way it just did for a plain text document. So that's really neat stuff too. Also, third-party protection. So the integrations, we support integrations into third parties. So unified endpoint management providers, mobile threat defense services. Those are all going to go and integrate in, have the ability to integrate in to your Google environment with BeyondCorp. So you can have signals that are outside of the context items that we've already seen, context signals that are provided by one of the third-party partners here. So, for example, risk scores, health scores, also the user and device location information as well. So, if you're already utilizing some of these, one of these vendors, you can integrate this with BeyondCorp into your Google environment very seamlessly, and then set up conditions for access to make sure that it's protected by this third party vendor, that it has the correct configuration, that it's getting it from the vendor. All right, so this is a fun part here. It's just a bunch of policy examples that you can do. I'm going to read these, but this will give you hopefully, like, get your noggin going, get your juices flowing about what kind of things you can do with this, which is really neat. So mandate that the device the request originated from is approved by a domain administrator. You could allow access to apps only from company issued devices. You can allow access to Drive only if a user storage device is encrypted. Restrict access to applications from outside the corporate network, disallowing access from specific countries. Can mandate that the device that the request originated in utilizes a Windows operating system and is owned by your organization. For third parties, you can also use device attributes to verify the device used to access is going to be reported by Lookout in this example as compliant with their policies, and the health score is rated from Lookout as very good. More examples, only allowing access to shift workers during their shift hours, so the time based. You have your temporary access. Maybe you need to expire access after X amount of days instead of just on a recurring basis, such as the shift hours. Allowing access only from managed Chrome browsers with the latest updates, so it's going to have to be updated, and then devices with screen lock enabled. Allowing access based on the strength of the user's login credentials. For example, if they do not have the security key, a physical security key set up, then deny access. Only allowing access on device data from CrowdStrike is fresh, so it's been updated in the past X amount of time. You can even do a disable downloading of any drive files if you don't want any of your files to actually leave the cloud that are on Drive. That's possible as well. And a bunch more. These are just to give you some examples, and you can combine this again with Chrome, your third-party vendors. You can combine it with your SaaS apps, your Google Cloud Platform, your other cloud providers, and on-prem. So some specific examples here for some personas that you might have in an organization. So employees, some teams are only going to need access to specific web applications, so you can prevent the exfiltration of code and confidential information from those applications that are containing sensitive information by basically locking them from access. Frontline workers, maybe they just need access to the point of sale system. So you can block employee web surfing from that device. You can say they just have this as sort of a thin client and it's able to do the point of sale system, and that's it. With call center, staff only going to need, for example, access to internal browser based call center apps. So safeguarding anything that's customer data, your PII. And then vendors for contractors and consultants, which are going to be pretty common to bring under the fold so that you can manage them in your organization. They'll be affected by your policies. Then utilizing BYOD and only needing access to certain applications. So you can secure corporate records and the sensitive information by preventing them from having access to those. And you're probably wondering, okay, how does this actually all set up? How does it work? So this is going to be a very mile high view. It's going to depend a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish. But in general, it's not going to have an impact to your existing security architecture. This is not, again, this is not adding programs to machines. And this is going to be something that oftentimes can be deployed very silently. You also can deploy this very slowly. So you can define your groups that you want to do like proof of concept or a pilot, and you can say, I just want to run this and on my core IT or my Google enthusiasts, and then we're going to expand that as needed because we're going to use that time also to define what policies we need for what subsets of our population, our user base. And then step 3, as you roll this out, you're going to be able to reduce the touch point for legacy items, where this is going to take over for that. And as your deployment increases of BeyondCorp. Okay, so that's it. Questions?
Thanks for that, David. That was super useful. I've worked in security before, and it's hard to find a demo that's compelling and like cool. Like I would like to go in and tinker with that. So, yeah, thanks for doing that live. Thank you, Alex, for walking us through sort of the backdrop to why something like this is important and what's going on. The the stat of 54% of IT departments say that they're like the modern cyber attack is too much for them to handle, like really resonates. I'm surprised that 54% were willing to admit it, because I'm pretty sure 100% like feel that. And like that leans on them. We've got a few questions today. It's kind of a quiet crowd, which is fine. I've got one just right off the top. Like, do either of you like? Do either have recommendations or sort of an idea of like, is this appropriate for smaller businesses, medium-sized businesses, as well as large business? Like, I know the name is BeyondCorp Enterprise, but this seems like the kind of thing that can be implemented by anyone who's, got employees dealing with sensitive data, or anyone that's, worried about a leak.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can definitely use this at any size organization. You are going to get protection from it, as you've seen, from a very small amount of users or smaller amount of users up to and including, yes, actual enterprise size organizations. And you do have all of that same level of protection, at the small end there, at the SMB level, as you would at the enterprise level. And so because it is fairly simple to implement, um, it definitely is not going to add too much overhead to smaller businesses that may have more limited resources to roll out new ventures inside the company.
Gotcha. I think the questions that were submitted, you've probably addressed, but looking at a couple of them, it feels important to like resurface them and be clear on them. And one of those is, does this work in a non-Chrome or like a mixed environment? Like, like other browsers, do you have to have Chromebooks? Like, how does this work in sort of a hybrid environment like that?
Yep. So the Chrome browser is going to be 100% required for this. And so the endpoint verification extension is mostly how it's communicating back and forth for device context, while other things can be gleaned without the extension. But ultimately, there's an extension that is making sure that the device, continually ensuring the device that you're on is meeting the correct context. And so with that, buying into the Chrome as your ecosystem and as your vendor for protection of your company data and so forth is going to be required. And there is the ability, if you are wondering now how you would stop people from actually utilizing, another browser, Safari or Firefox, for example, you do have the ability to mandate that if people are signing into your workspace environment, that it must be in a Chrome browser. And so this is one, again, there are tons of policies for the Chrome browser that you can enact. That's just one of them. Other things would be like URL blocking. You can set homepage tabs. You can set bookmarks. You can push bookmarks out centrally. So Chrome has a entire package of settings that you can push out centrally also. And one of them is going to be to enforce that people would need to use the Chrome browser in order to be able to sign in to anything Google.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. I guess we'll do one more. I'm going to kind of combine these. I think these are sort of related. Like, is there a specific tier of Workspace that a company needs to be on? And are there any other products required besides, like, I mean, is Workspace required? I mean, obviously, that's the environment that it works best in, but is there a specific tier?
Oh, I'll let Alex take that one.
Yeah, so for BeyondCorp, there isn't a specific tier of Workspace that you need, right? So the way to think about it is BeyondCorp is an extension of the security controls that you have in Workspace. So any type of Workspace license will work with BeyondCorp. Now, the security controls that you have in Workspace, that will depend on the licensing that you have for Workspace.